composition from RNG, it is pure mid-game aggression right here.
Yeah, both compositions wanting to do very similar things, but like you just said with the mid-game, it does feel like RNGs will come online a bit sooner, having things like the Jarvan, the Misfortune, and of course the Morgana. So the big question for me whenever you draft something like a Morgana, you know, a mage support that is more fragile, is how are they going to play around this pressure in bot lane? Because you can't just let the enemy jungle come gank, and you should come out ahead in these 3v3s with something like a Thresh. So we want to see Xiaolongbao really play heavily towards his bot side.
Oh, we are straight into game here. Fastest loading screen in the history of the world, but RNG against LNG here. What is that noise? I've never heard that before with this skin, Maple. That is horrendous. I hope he does that for the whole laning phase, just to try and tilt Xiaohu. But either way, we are going to see, a little bit of a cheeky bit of aggression. Ming looks for the Dark Binding. Doesn't quite find light, but they will get a nice little ward into the Tri-Brush.
Yep, and going back to that mid lane that you were talking about with the sound, Xiaohu versus Maple is a matchup we've had many, many times over the years, going back from Maple's Flash Wolf days. Of course, Flash Wolves and RNG always going to the international, you know, MSIs and Worlds, so these two players should be very familiar with each other.
Certainly will be, and I'm sure they're very familiar with this matchup as well. Corki Azir, especially last year, had its fair share of games. I think it's fair to say it was pretty much permanently locked in that mid lane.
You know, and going back across the map, the other thing I actually like about this Morgana pick is the Black Shield for the Rek'Sai knockup, since he's very, very dependent on that, you know, to get in the middle of the team, and then also coming out against the Chains of Corruption. So always great to see Ming bring out his signature Morgana.
I'm just excited for once we get to those team fights beyond level 6, Ming grabbing an early stopwatch. You can see that he's gone for that, the rune that gets you the stopwatch very early on into the game. You see him flash forward, go for the Soul Shackles onto the whole squad, alongside a Cataclysm, alongside Langxing spinning around in the whole team.
Yeah, and Xiaolongbao going for a really aggressive invade. He does have priority on the top side, but when you are on the blue side of the map, Chenlun will be able to follow us up, but it doesn't matter. XX spots it out too late, and Xiaolongbao is going to triple buff XX.
Xiaolongbao, just great pathing here, great way to start the game, and XX, no real answer to it. The question will be on these Scuttle Crabs. What can XX do on this Rek'Sai to try and answer the pressure that Xiaolongbao's already putting onto him?
Yeah, and we talked about how we do want to see him end up pathing towards the bot side, which is where he's going to end up going. It's really interesting to see Xiaohu go back to a pick like the Corki. We've seen him like these really aggressive early and mid-game champions, and even in the first few weeks, RNG had a really good set play where Xiaolongbao would hover mid-early, Xiaohu would go for a quick reset, and then they would use that tempo advantage to consistently look for bot. Corki, not the type of champion you're going to look for that play with. He's just going to end up kind of sitting mid and farming with Maple.
I'm curious how Chenlun is going to do up towards the top side of the map here. As we mentioned before, he's stepping in to replace Flandre, the legacy player on LNG who'd been playing with them since 2014. There's kind of a lot of pressure on Chenlun. Even though he's on a squad that's on a 7-loss streak right now, he's still going to have pressure to do well in this top lane and justify this substitution, because for any LNG fans at home, this is going to be a big deal not to see Flandre on the squad.
That's true. I feel like the pressure is going to be a lot more about fans rather than the actual expectations from your org or coaching staff, right? We don't know why this substitution happened. Could have been suggested by Flandre himself. Yeah. Could be the coaching staff saying, hey, we are a bit far behind. Let's get some experience onto Chenlun. So a lot of benefits, I think, of just putting him in this game. And also, we talked about RNG have looked really not good lately. They are on a 3-series lose streak.
Yeah. And we mentioned it a little bit before as well. It feels like a lot of that is down to just indecisive, or not even indecisiveness necessarily. Just doesn't feel like they're on the same page in these fights.
RNG is one of the most confusing teams because there's some teams...
Here we go. Xiaolongbao wants to make a play onto Maple. Gets the slow with the Golden Age.
Whoa.
Oh, Maple doesn't get his dash off properly. In the meantime, XX makes a play in the bottom side. Nice route from Ming, though. Duan doesn't have the death sentence. Both plays just going to be deterred.
Yeah, Xiaolongbao finding that opportunity in the mid lane when Xiaohu got that bounce back. And we were talking about that against RNG's bot lane. It'd be really good if XX can find some early pressure.
Langxing, very nicely done with the Warrior Trickster. Dodges to the side, and it means that Chenlun hits the wrong clone with the Obliterate.
best Wukong in LPL. I'm going to say that
I'm starting to believe
I'm
you.
going to say that very confidently.
That's going to be one of my learning points from today. We're going to be judging whether or not Longxing is going to be the best Wukong in the league.
And we just saw in that replay just a very nice, aggressive play from Dwan. We actually don't see too often where we get these Threshes who still make the Flash Flay Lantern play, but it is one of those things that's just very easy to guarantee summoners from the enemy bot lane.
So now everything going to go quiet a little bit. And XX and Xiaolong Bao, both of them attempted to make a play here. Both of them burning summoners, but not able to actually find a kill. And now with Dragon on the map, you can see Xiaolong Bao's path back towards this bottom side and will start the objective off.
Yeah, with Ming getting that reset as well, Xiaolong Bao just going to come straight down to bot, go right onto this Dragon, matching up with Xiao who's pushing the mid lane. So should just be a free objective for the side of RNG.
And XX doesn't have anything he can do about it. He's going to maybe grab himself some chickens, but that's about all he'll be able to find. Red buff not going to be up for another, just under a minute, I think. We'll see if that's going to spawn in time for him to grab that. I don't think so.
And then a cool thing to note is that Longxing has actually held his TP. Chenlun did use his to get back to lane and push in that wave. So we want to keep note of this, especially going into the Rift Herald play, that for RNG, they could get that push in the bot lane with Xiaolong Bao hovering. They rotate towards the top side, send Longxing down, and then Longxing is either going to get, free plates, free gold in the bot side, or going to be able to TP over, and Shenlun or, whoever from LNG stuck in that bot lane, RNG will get numbers advantage.
Now, I want to bring up the schedule here for RNG, because you just pointed out the difference in top laners here between Shenlun using that teleport, maybe a little overzealously, and it means Longxing will have an advantage. And it reminds you of the matchup that we're actually in here. While RNG haven't looked that great recently, they are still RNG. They are still this squad that makes playoffs every single time. And when you look at their remaining schedule, they're 7-6 on the scoreboard right now. They're in 7th place. And the remaining opponents are LNG, DMO, and Suning. They need to win 2 of these series, but with the way that their schedule has panned out, I feel like even this weakened version of RNG should be poised to make playoffs regardless.
Like, just the fact that it's RNG and we've seen how they've looked in some of their wins, you would think they're going to make playoffs. But the fact that they've recently lost games against teams like Rogue Warriors and LGD, who, of course, have looked better, makes you start questioning, well, DMO's looked better as well, right? They need to play DMO after this series. It's very winnable for the side of DMO. Even LNG have had a lot of better early games in their recent series. I think it was against EDG where they were actually winning until Flandre made a mistake at the end of the game where they were trying to close out too soon, gets picked off, and then EDG win.
And then immediately LNG were like, right, subbed out. That's it. That's your last mistake, Flandre. That's obviously a joke. I don't know why he was subbed out. Just going to clarify that before anyone gets carried away. But yeah, it's important to remember who these two teams are, but also these RNG losses recently, the one to LGD, the one to Rogue Warriors, the one against Rogue Warriors, 3 of the messiest games we've had this entire split, honestly. It felt like both sides were just hands in the air trying to figure out what on earth was going on the entire time, just brawl after brawl after brawl.
Actually, in my notes, I always write notes about a team's last series. I have 3 question marks and complete mess.
Yeah, that's about all you can say about it, right? It was just, like, I don't like to say this phrase often, especially with the LPL, but it was a fiesta. It was an absolute clown fiesta. And, I mean, it was a pleasure to watch for me. I thoroughly enjoyed it from home, but their series against LGD, it felt a lot like not just RNG didn't know what was going on, but also LGD had seriously leveled up for that series.
And going back to the game real quick, just because we do see LNG taking this Herald, we just set up a couple minutes ago that it would have been nice to see RNG make this rotation first for the fact that they do have TP on Longxing. They could have brought up the lane swap from their bot lane, sent Longxing down, really put a lot of pressure onto the side of LNG. And we even saw in the mid lane, this was a good timing where Xiaohu had something like the package, and you would have felt like you were in a good position for RNG to not give anything over to LNG.
LNG, the ones leading the charge here. They've got tempo for themselves, and XX going to move up with this Rift Herald, with Demolish. They should be able to break through a couple more plates before they actually drop the Herald for themselves. They seem like they're umming and ahhing on this play, though.
Yeah, they look very undecided on what they actually want to do. It's actually given Xiaohu time to where he can start roaming up, and now they're not going to be able to drop this Rift Herald and try to take plates.
I don't know why they didn't pull the trigger, though. I feel like they could have just dropped the Herald, even with the potential of Xiaolong Bao there. I think they had time to at least get a couple more plays for themselves.
I think it's fine if they don't want to take plates now, but it is weird that they didn't commit one way or the other, right? Because they could have had XX get back on the map and start farming down towards bot side instead of just kind of posturing around the turret.
Yeah, it just felt like indecisive call there. But either way, XX will just return to his jungle now and start farming. And I think Xiaolong Bao and Xiaohu as well, both like, are they going to do it? Are they going to make the play? Decide not to. Demolish comes through. And they are still going to get a whole bunch of tower plays for themselves, regardless.
It's really interesting that XX just went back, took his Gromp, which made Xiaolong Bao think, okay, well, they're not going to do anything towards top side, then went back to farming his camps, headed down towards bot, and they're going to be able to get first turret, and
so what you're
probably
saying
a second
is
charge.
LNG are actually macro geniuses, and it was all a bait all along.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
Oh, well, that was my conclusion from it, and I'm going to stick to it regardless. They might get a tier 2.
Yes. No.
RNG, what are you doing? Where are you?
They're getting a tier 2. RNG are deciding to take Dragon instead.
I mean, hey, it's the second Dragon. Like, at least they get an Infernal Drake for themselves. At least they get a second Dragon. But it's 1,500 gold in favor of LNG right now. And RNG doing basically nothing about it.
And I think that's completely worth for the side of LNG just trying and starting to snowball that gold advantage rather than picking up the first 2 Drakes, which we've talked about a lot, that the first 2 Drakes can and are pretty meaningless, I'd say, inside of most compositions. There are some that really need to just start from the get-go and accelerating towards those 4, but yeah, I think big misstep from RNG when, again, going back to that initial TP, we were talking about that RNG should have been the ones setting up these plays.
And it goes back to, you know, when we're talking about Drakes, quite often there's the debate, right, of the early Drakes versus getting early gold. And pretty much all the time, gold wins that debate because when it comes to the soul, when it comes to the later Drakes, the team with the gold lead quite often ends up with the advantage there. XX has moved to the bottom side of the map. I think they want more plays. I think they're just going to make plays towards the bottom side now.
Yeah. And to your last point, just being able to stack up, you know, 3 or 4 of the same Drake is obviously much better than getting 1 fire or 1 cloud or, you know, etc.
Yeah, just stacks on top of itself. Want to look towards this Corki here because it's important to note Xiaohu not going for the Mana Moon build, going straight for the Triforce, will then go into the Infinity Edge. So looking towards crit damage a little bit earlier on, but more damage later, essentially. Won't spike quite as soon as the Mana Moon build.
Yep, that Mana Moon build is a lot more about the 2-item power spike that you get from Yura Mana and Triforce. This one a lot more about that 3-item, the crit coming out from your auto attacks and things like this that you just talked about.
So this has been a slow start to things, and not exactly what I was expecting from RNG, because let's go back to the conversation we had early on about the compositions here. Look at the level 6 from RNG. You got Wukong, you got Jarvan, you've even got Morgana with an MF as well. Like, you'd expect that at level 6, this team just wants to group and just force something, force anything, just find a way to fight.
Yeah, and we saw, especially playing around those Corki package times, is what would be really massive. You have Corki with a package. Once he has Triforce, you're in the mid game. You just mentioned the Misfortune and the Jarvan. Everything should be set up for RNG to do well, but we really haven't seen RNG do anything.
I don't know about you, Lyric. I'm starting to fall asleep here. 13 minutes into the game. And in a game I was expecting to be a little bit more proactive, but it is important to mention that both of these teams coming into this series on a loss streak, you know? RNG 3 loss streak, LNG 7 loss streak. So the question of confidence does come into play. Like, if you are losing these games, and bear in mind, RNG, their 2 recent losses weren't against big-name teams. They were against LGD, they were against Rogue Warriors, 2 teams towards the lower half of the standings. RNG probably don't feel confident coming into a matchup like this.
That's true. The question is, what does these losses do to your team's morale coming into a series like this, where you should be the expected favorite, but it actually puts a lot more pressure on your shoulders.
It really does. And in 7th place in the standings right now. If OMG had won their series to start the day off against E-Star, RNG would have been pushed into that 9th place position. Luckily for RNG, OMG did lose out in their series, and it does mean that they're going to be safe in 7th for now. But OMG still snapping at their heels. They're going to have teams like World Elite as well that still have 4 series to go. They're wanting to climb up. They're wanting to keep chasing.
Yep, and now we have both teams, it looks like, starting to get that initial setup for the Rift Herald. We already see that RNG have controlled vision for that, and LNG making sure they get the resets now so they can come and start contesting for this objective. But Light's still nowhere to be found. He's going to start making his way up now, though.
Light didn't quite get the memo on that one, but the Herald has spawned an RNG. Look at the vision control. Look at the control wards they've got in this river. They're going to know that XX and Duan are trying to move in. Maybe waiting to make a play. Longxing has teleport. You can see Xiaohu waiting in base. Grabs his package and is going to charge over through the mid lane.
Yep, and right now in a team fight, I would favor the side of RNG, having that package, everything up, you know, ultimate-wise on the side of RNG. We also have the Black Shield that we've talked about. Longxing being very strong now as well, finishing that Black Cleaver.
And despite all of this setup, they're going to back away. They decide they don't want to just try and force this Herald. But good answer from LNG to be here to contest in some way so that RNG can't just force the issue. 20 seconds now until the Drake spawns on the map. And we could have just a trade of objectives, although it looks like both sides might be moving towards this bottom half.
Yep, instead heading towards that dragon, since this would be RNG's third. And of course, Xiao having to answer.
It's a good route, a follow-up knock-up as well. XX the first one to go down. Longxing gets a knock-up just onto Duan though. XLB had to go golden. Xiaohu's behind them. Doesn't have the package available anymore. Just going to bulk over the wall and try and get onto Duan again. Second Cyclone doesn't hit anyone from Longxing. It's just going to be the one kill here for RNG, but it does open this dragon up for them.
But they need to be careful because Shenlun still has his ultimate. They still have pretty much everything, not everything. They have Empress Divide and the Death Realm available on the side of LNG, which will be massive if RNG decide to start the objective.
And it seems like RNG are going to respect that. Looks like they're going to back away. LNG as well, still not confident enough to go for this dragon. And this has been very much a game of stalemate here so far this game. Both teams posture around the Rift Herald. Both teams back away. Both teams posture around the dragon. One kill goes away. Both teams back away.
Yeah, still RNG sending Xiaohu to answer that wave bot. Longxing being able to rotate first leads to that kind of pseudo numbers advantage. Like the threat is there, so once XX goes to start clearing that ward, Xiaolangbao feels a lot of safety just all-inning on top of him.
Find comes through from Ming, but no real follow-up available there. So far, so good for Shenlun at least. He's going to be even in CS, able to just chill throughout this laning phase. Teleport comes through from Xiaohu. They want to make the play onto the dragon. LNG start this one off pretty early here. 3,000 health remaining. Hook goes in onto Xiaolangbao. They're just baiting the jungle if they've found the kill. Duan gets it, but it's traded. Xiaohu the one to get the credit there. XX desperate to get the smite. Will find it. Flashes over the wall. Longxing chases him. Another one for Xiaohu. Now onto Duan. They want to get more kills. They want to find advantages. Triple for Xiaohu. This game has been blown open wide as he finds the quadra for himself. RNG are onto the map.
And I love how we don't see RNG proactively looking for these plays. They let LNG start the Drake first. We see kind of the strength of LNG's comp finding that pick with the death sentence, but still we have so much AoE and damage coming out from the side of RNG. Even with Xiaolangbao down, we saw the ultimate coming out from Longxing, and Xiaohu able to just follow up with all the damage.
And out of nowhere, we see Xiaohu pick up his Triforce and immediately force the issue.
And it looks so good for LNG at first, finding that pick onto Xiaolangbao, but still Betty able to hit a good ultimate onto most members of LNG. Maple and Duan actually getting zoned out, allowing for Xiaohu and Longxing able to get onto the rest of LNG.
Great triple there. And Betty just sets this extra kill up for him. Shenlun gets so low. The phosphorus, but look at the damage out of a Triforce Corki at this point.
Yeah, and we talked about how when it comes to these mid-game team fights, it does feel like RNG is in a much better position for them. They have a lot more AoE CC coming out from their composition. Things like the Misfortune, if you do hit that bullet time, just doing so much damage in these fights. And yeah, RNG coming out ahead.
2,000 gold ahead now, so if they weren't confident before, I feel like that fight is going to give you confidence. That is going to make you feel like you're in this game now. Bear in mind, Xiaohu, 1,500 gold ahead. In fact, almost 2,000 gold ahead of the highest gold carry on the side of LNG.
And what's really good is he was able to get the QSS, so he's not going to feel any pressure coming out from Shenlun in these team fights.
That entire gold lead for RNG exists exclusively on Xiaohu right now. Chenlun moving in on the bottom side of the map.
I was going to say, they're looking for a dive, which Longxing still has his ultimate. Longxing is everything up. I'm not sure that's going to work out the way you'd hope for the side of LNG.
Try and dive the best Wukong in the league. I don't know if you want to go for that one. Maple's here to try and clear away the minion waves. Just keep this tier 2 alive. Look at that is how scary Triforce Corki is.
Yep. Triforce, of course, being a better stronger one-item power spike than the Manamune. Manamune still takes time to turn into that Yura mana. But the upside of that build, right, is how much cheaper it is as an item, 2,400 gold, as compared to the, what is it, 3,733?
Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
It's the most expensive item in the game, I know that. Or at least it used to be. Maybe IE's more than. I can't remember.
Nope, I would say it is not. I think IE's 3,300? Triforce is definitely 3,700 and some change. I think it's 33.
I know it's 333 to upgrade the 3 components into the Triforce. Either way, it doesn't matter which one's most expensive. What matters is
it does matter.
It's an incredibly expensive build for Corki because he goes for IE and he goes for Trinity Force. So 2 massive, massive items. You need basically 8,000 gold to finish it all off. Actually, that's just terrible math. It's more like 7,000 gold. There you go.
And Dwan, interestingly enough, going to go towards that redemption first. We do kind of see a bit of diversity with Threshes. Sometimes they do go for the Gargoyle Stoneplate if they are playing more of an initiator role. We see Sword Art likes that one a lot. We've also seen some people go for the Zeeks, just kind of giving more of a bite in these team fights. And when you go for redemption is typically against comps that rely more on burst and you feel comfortable winning out the war of DPS.
Yeah, the redemption just give you a little bit more sustain, and bear in mind, if you can get it across the whole team, the amount of healing you get out of a redemption is very much the difference between a win or a loss in a team fight. But we're beyond the 20-minute mark now. Dragon going to be spawning in a minute, but Baron is on the map. Neither of these teams really with the ultimate Baron composition, but bear in mind, if XX can tank it, if they get vision control, Maple and Light will be able to burn through that.
I was going to say both comps have the ability to do it relatively fast. When we've seen these two comps so many times of double AD carry one side, Azir pretty much, burns a Baron as fast as an AD carry, so double AD carry on that side as well.
We are going to see, though, RNG not even looking towards the Baron just yet. They've got vision on it, and that's all they need. Same from LNG as everyone moving towards the bottom side of the map. 20 seconds until this Dragon. This would be sold for RNG.
Yeah, and the fact that RNG also still have the Rift Herald, they could place this down in the bot lane.
This would be soul point for RNG, not soul.
Oh, yep, soul point.
I misspoke there.
Just drop Herald down in one lane, make LNG put resources into that lane, and then you should be able to freely force the Dragon, or they're going to give up a structure somewhere else on the map.
Pressuring onto the tier 2 in the bottom lane.
RNG don't want to do that.
No, they do not. Longxing is going to be recalling, heads back to base.
Could have just dropped Herald bot, walked to this Dragon. Felt really good. Someone from LNG would have to go bot, but they don't.
They need a shot caller.
There we
need
go.
Someone like you on the squad, Jordan. You should step up. You could replace Xiaolong Bao, be the new rookie.
But
I don't think Xiaolong Bao needs replacing.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Please be more respectful to our teams, but still, they are going to be able to start up this Drake. Of course, Chenlun does still have TP if he wants to answer quickly, but looks like LNG are just going to give this up. RNG making the macro play that we wanted to see. Great job, RNG.
Nice. We see it come through. The Herald in the bot lane, answered by Chenlun on the Mordekaiser there. It does mean that they get the third Drake for themselves, moving towards that soul. Baron still available on the map, and that's the only neutral objective for the next 5 minutes. Xiaohu going to begin this terrifying split push that Corki can offer.
Yep, Corki feeling a lot of safety in a side lane, and we already talked about how he picked up that QSS, so Chenlun not going to put a lot of threat on top of him. But still, neither of these comps really wanting to play through side lane. It is going to consistently be about these team fights going forward.
I love how when you look at this series versus the series against Rogue Warriors, it feels like RNG just want anything other than that series. They played so slow, so like almost nervously it feels like, which is the complete and utter opposite of what we saw from them against Rogue Warriors.
I was going to say that RNG is probably the most frustrating team to talk about, just for the fact that when you look at why some teams fail, like WE, if WE doesn't get some kind of mid-priority champion, they really struggle how to translate that into an advantage in the side lanes.
Yep.
When you look at another team like BLG, if they're not able to get to that mid to late game point, they really struggle, right? For RNG, it feels like there's no certain factor that determines whether they'll succeed or fail. Every game is just kind of different. In some games, they look like they could be a top 2, top 3 team. In some games, you're like, why is this team even in LPL?
I don't think I've ever said that about RNG. I have said that about LNG, though. So everything goes wide.
I think Hysterics and Nagda might have been saying that in the RNG versus Rogue Warrior series.
Why are they in the LPL?
Why are these two teams here?
Oh, dear. Well, that's maybe a little overzealous. Either way.
Hey, I love both teams, so... But I want to see both teams do well. I want to see all these teams do well. Even moving over to LNG, they have the talent to do well. They have people like XX who never really plotted as this great mechanical individual player, still a great team player on top esports. Asura, who's not playing right now, was such a great AD carry towards the end of last year, especially in those late game team fights. Dwan, always a standout on this roster as well. FLICKR, who once again not here, having really hot and cold moments, but the moments he's hot, best player on this roster, so...
He's like molten lava. Here we go. Tower goes down in the top side of the map. Nicely done here by RNG. They find a tier 2 for themselves. And when you're talking about LNG, when you talk about their successes, a lot of their successes have been off the back of Maple on this Azir. When you look at his 4 most played champions, his Zoe with 10 games, 40% win rate. His LeBlanc with 7 games, 28%. Rumble, 6 games, 17%. Not great. But then his Azir, he's played it 5 times and got an 80% win rate. So clearly, LNG, they like this late game mid laner.
It just makes sense, too, that when you're not as strong and confident in making these proactive and aggressive decisions, that, right, if you can get the game to a point where it is like a 50-50 late game team fight, having champions like Azir just do so well, and it feels like a lot of teams, not even just in the LPL, but across the world, that's what they default to if they do struggle.
Struggling is exactly what LNG have done so far this split.
And now we just see what we expected to see, which is just both teams trading waves back and forth. Maybe if someone, like we say right now, Longxing pushes out this wave, someone from LNG has to go and answer. You can try to move Longxing around the map somewhere and hope to find a catch and pray on a mistake from LNG, but we're realistically not going to see much action until that 1 minute, 10 seconds where Drake comes up. Unless one team wants to do something crazy, which, you know, I'm all for.
I'm all for it, but doesn't feel like that's going to happen. I can hear the ghost of Dudadunga somewhere in the distance as it feels like I'm watching LCK right now.
Which, you know, is fine. If you're RNG, you don't feel any need to pressure anything. And also for LNG, when you do have the Azir, like you just talked about, why risk it? Let's be full LCK, but we don't have the same memes, so it is kind of a bit more disappointing.
We don't have the same memes. We haven't named our Grumps yet.
True. I can't say take it away without, you know, getting insulted and being called Budget LS, but I love that, though. I love to take it away. Oh, God, those guys are great.
It is always... I mean, LCK has that history of always being really great to just sit and listen to. It's almost like a lot of the games feel like a podcast because some of the games are so slow. Here we go, though. Enough about LCK. We've got a Baron fight on our hands. Longxing steps forward. We'll find the knock-up on just Chenlun for now. Backs away. Xiaohu getting the flank. Good bit of damage on this Corki and Longxing. Just going to find the Mordekaiser once again. 1v1 between the top laners. Chenlun. He's attacking the wrong monkey again. A nice dodge away. Bullet time across the team. Chenlun out of the death realm and into the grave. Now the rest of our LNG going to be backing away from this one. Xiaohu trying to get it. Ming flashes forward, misses everything. Empress Divide from Maple. Betty getting onto the backline in the meantime. He finds 2 for himself. Make it 3 as well. RNG ace LNG.
Xiaohu's play was so crazy at the end of that, but it doesn't matter. RNG come out ahead. That fight started pretty anticlimactically where Longxing tries to go in. Xiaohu's like, yes, let's go. Full-on commits with the package. And then the rest of RNG are like, oh, no, it looks kind of dicey, but Xiaohu's already in, so Longxing jumps in right along with him, and then they're able to just get Chenlun in the middle of the team. And
Betty at the end is like, oh, we're going in? Well, I'm going in. Flashes forward and goes for the kills.
Xiaohu as well jumping right on top of Maple. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to see an Uzi stream later where he's not happy. But
I can't wait to see the highlights of that. Importantly, though, Soul does go the way of RNG as well as a Baron.
We'd already seen Xiaohu commit, the rest of LNG walk away. Longxing tries to go back in, and kind of confusing decision by Shenlong to pull him into the ult, I think. I think they could have continued to kite forward. But still, Betty then feeling good enough after Ming hits a binding to channel this bullet time. Then they just full-on commit to Shenlong, who's still close to their team. And I think here's where we see Xiaohu get a bit crazy. Where is it? Where is it? Oh, actually, Ming jumping in, trying to get there.
Well,
it is with the flash. Betty jumps in right along with him, and it's kind of nice to see them all end up on the same page and finding the ace.
Ultimately, that's what we wanted from this series. We've been saying that RNG, they felt a little directionless and like they weren't necessarily on the same page. Hey, at least they're making that play together. Even if it's crazy, just do it as a team.
Like, we've seen the ups and downs this game where we talked about some of the rotations they could have made earlier they didn't look for. Even the Herald play coming out a few seconds later than they probably should have looked for it, but then we see these moments where it's like, oh, hey, this is the RNG that consistently, you know, goes to Worlds, makes finals, and is RNG.
I just wish that they could do this against teams that are a little higher in the standings. Langshin goes in bullet time as well. That's the combo of ults we were talking about. Shenlong Bao tries to find his way back in. He's pulled into the death round. I don't think Shenlong is going to be able to survive this one. Another kill comes through for Betty. Shenlong suddenly finds himself alone here. There's one for Xiaohu. This is all but over. We've gone from 0 to 100 real quick. This will be 2 inhibitors at least for RNG. But they've got Baron. They've got the minions. They can just close things out. 30 seconds until Maple is back. This is going to be game. Betty just wants more kills. One more crit would have done it. But this is going to be game. A 32-minute victory for RNG.
And nice to see things getting back on track for RNG. Sure, it is against